They called him Ghost, a name whispered, not spoken, not a rank, not a call sign, a myth etched into the blood-stained datapads of bounty hunters and mercenary war bands across half the spiral arm. No one could prove he was real, and no one who had seen him survived long enough to tell the tale in full. But Ghost had a real name once. Jonas Creed. He muttered into the recycled air of his sealed helmet. The HUD shimmered around the edges of his vision, updating environmental data, thermal readings, magnetic activity, and the subtle whine of kinetic barriers fluctuating under the pressure of Castron IV's atmosphere. The planet was a husk, riddled with old mining scars, mercenary tombs, and abandoned outposts. A perfect place to disappear. Or, in Creed's case, to hunt. He crouched on a jagged bluff, a rifle almost as long as he was tall, resting steady in his hands. Its casing was matte black, invisible to the eye in low light. Creed didn't need to see the target yet. He felt them before the first signal pinged his visor. Subtle movement in the dust miles away. Too steady for wind. Too slow for animals. Movement detected. Trimerc configuration. Species, Dravani. Probability of target class, 87.3%. The AI whispered its data, soft like breath. Creed didn't respond. Just let the wind tickle the edge of his hearing. His heart rate didn't change. This wasn't the first time someone tried to hunt a ghost. But this time was different. These Dravani mercs were professionals hired by the Kirill Syndicate. And the Syndicate wanted proof humans could bleed. Creed let his mind wander for a heartbeat, back to Earth. Or rather, what was left of it. Humanity had outgrown its cradle long before the galactic core nations took notice. By then, humans had already spread across 12 systems, mining asteroids, terraforming frozen rocks, building colonies on radiation-bathed moons where no other species dared go. The first time alien warlords tried to liberate human territory, they discovered quickly that Earth's soldiers fought like cornered wolves. Not out of glory, not even for victory, but because humans understood one thing better than anyone else in the galaxy: survival. They had clawed their way up from caves, through extinction events, and firebombs, and self-made plagues. War wasn't new. It was ancient, and men like Jonas Creed were the reason alien empires hesitated before signing a mercenary contract labeled high risk. Human special forces involved. The sun dipped further into the horizon, casting long shadows over the ruin-laced landscape. Far below, 3 faint glimmers shimmered in the thermal spectrum. Dravani cloaking units, designed to mimic temperature and visual camouflage. Nice tech. Too bad they were using it against the wrong species. Creed adjusted a dial on his rifle, then slowed his breath until it matched the wind. One of the mercs paused, scanning the horizon with an over-engineered sensor wand. The other 2 flanked out, circling a point where they thought the human was hiding. The Centra Dravani turned slightly, just enough for Creed to spot the thin outline of the neck plate where the armor overlapped. He fired once. The shot was silent, invisible. The Dravani never heard it. The neck plate disintegrated, sending the alien collapsing sideways in a silent heap. No pulse beacon, no scream. The other 2 froze for half a second too long. Creed vanished into the crags below without making sound. Kirill Syndicate intelligence had labeled this mission low risk. Their analysts said the probability of human interference was under 3%. Their client, a breakaway cartel in the Ashen Cluster, wanted a human commando assassinated before he destabilized their expansion efforts on the Outer Rim. But what they didn't understand, what none of the cartel lords or war clan elders ever seemed to grasp, was that humans didn't send special forces to defend territory. They became the territory. The body of the Dravani was cooling when Creed reached it. He scanned the corpse quickly, looking for anything useful: implant chips, data caches, a mission tracker. There in the subdermal lining of the throat was a blinking tag. Tiny, encrypted, transmitting. Creed lifted his knife. One quick slice, one clean extraction. The chip flickered, then dimmed as he crushed it under his boot. A new ping on the HUD. Inbound drop ship. Heavy configuration. ETA for minutes. They were sending reinforcements. Faster than usual, Creed muttered. He slung the rifle across his back and touched a button at his belt. The terrain shimmered for a split second before a small crawler drone shimmered into view, cloaked. It unfolded like an insect from between rocks. Creed climbed inside the tight cockpit, closed the hatch, and engaged silent mode. The crawler began its descent down a winding gully, deeper into a series of underground tunnels long abandoned by miners decades ago. Somewhere above, the dropship would land. They'd find the body, assume Creed had gone east, then sweep the wrong side of the canyon. That would buy him time. But this wasn't just another evasion op. This mission had layers. Hidden inside a forgotten comms relay deep under Castron 4 was a vault. One few even remembered. Inside that vault was a recording, a single piece of footage that Kirill's syndicate feared more than any military force. A recording of the last time alien mercenaries tried to take on a human special ops team. The footage had been scrubbed from the intergalactic net. Data assassins hunted copies across star systems. Testimonies were bought, stolen, or erased. But Creed knew where the original still existed, buried in this forsaken rock. And he was here to retrieve it. Because the syndicate hadn't just forgotten the lesson. They were trying to erase the memory of why mercenaries stopped taking human contracts in the first place. Creed's voice was a whisper. They need to remember. As the crawler vanished into the shadows, the camera lens on its hull caught a faint flicker above, a sleek black dropship with Kirill markings descending like a hungry hawk. And inside, a new squad of genetically enhanced alien soldiers, bred to track, maim, and kill. They didn't know what they were walking into, but they learned soon enough. And the galaxy would remember why contracts against humans came with one warning in every mercenary guild database. If special forces are confirmed, decline immediately. The crawler slowed, its treads making no sound on the ancient stone beneath. Creed stepped out into stale darkness, breathing through the recycled air of his suit. The mine tunnels were a relic, carved by crude plasma drills decades ago and left to rot when the core veins dried up. That made them perfect. No drones worked this deep. No orbital scan could pierce the dense metal layers that lined the cavern walls. Down here, the planet itself acted as a firewall. Creed activated his shoulder lamp, bathing the chamber in low amber light. He moved with practiced silence, past crumbling support beams and collapsed shafts, down the route he'd memorized from the old blueprints hidden in Terran intelligence archives. Only a handful of operatives even knew of this place. At the far end of a narrow shaft, behind a rusted hatch marked in faded human civil authority letters, he found it. A vault door, octagonal, with a corroded interface panel blinking feebly in the dark. He knelt. "This is Ghost 7, Creed whispered, holding a chip data token to the panel. A pause. Then the vault hissed open with a hydraulic groan. Inside, dust danced in zero-G motes. The room was lined with obsolete servers, some cracked, others humming faintly as backup power still trickled through forgotten veins. In the center, suspended in a hardened memory cradle, was the original recording. Creed approached it reverently. When his fingers brushed the panel, the cradle awoke, and the image appeared, blurry at first, then sharp and cold. A battlefield. Smoke. Screams. A squad of humans, outnumbered 20-1, pinned behind wreckage. And then, what came next was why the Syndicate had spent 30 years burying it. The human team didn't retreat, didn't surrender. They advanced. One soldier, name redacted, face scarred and gaunt, charged a fortified trench using only a blade and a thermal mine. The footage captured what no alien commander wanted their troops to see, that human fear was different, that it turned inward becoming fire, rage, willpower. They tore through the mercenary forces with surgical brutality, flanking patterns no AI could predict, movement that seemed reckless, even suicidal, until you saw the results. When the smoke cleared, over 300 alien soldiers lay dead. All 7 humans survived. The screen froze on the last frame, the red-eyed stare of the team leader, drenched in blood and grit, glaring into the drone's lens. Creed copied the file onto his encrypted device and turned off the system. The cradle shut down. Lights dimmed. Then his comms lit up with a ping. Unauthorized energy spike. Proximity alert. Less than 100 meters. He wasn't alone. Damn it, he muttered. A kinetic pulse hammered through the vault wall, shattering rock and sending shards slicing through the air like razors. Creed rolled, drew his sidearm, and dove behind the mainframe bank. The wall blew open. Dust filled the chamber. A massive figure stepped through, 8 feet tall, plated in reflective white armor laced with blue tribal glyphs. One of the Syndicate's newest toys. A genetically sculpted war thing. Faster, stronger, bred for a single purpose. Kill. Jonas Creed, the thing growled through translator grid. You are to surrender the recording and submit for extraction. Creed stood slowly. Not in surrender. I thought they'd send a tracker, he said. Didn't think they'd be desperate enough to send a reaver. The reaver's helmet tilted. This is not desperation. It is inevitability. Creed smiled. You think that because you've never fought a human who wanted to lose. He fired 3 rounds. Each struck the reaver square in the faceplate, staggering him slightly, but not penetrating. Creed dove again as a fist smashed into the floor where he'd just been, denting metal. A pulse charge flew from Creed's glove, struck the reaver's shoulder, and sparked violently, sending the creature lurching backward. He didn't need to win. Not here. He just needed to run. Creed bolted through a maintenance tunnel, weaving between beams, scraping past ancient piping. His legs burned. The wall shook behind him as the reaver pursued, smashing through rock like it was foam. Redirect left. Maintenance access. Shaft 11C. The AI guided him. Creed turned left, then kicked off the wall into a diagonal sprint, sliding under collapsed metal. The tunnel grew narrower. Light flickered. Above, a steel hatch. He grabbed the ladder, scaled it in 4 bounds, and slammed the override switch. A fire blast erupted behind him. The hatch slammed shut just in time. Enemy tracking lost. Surface breach likely in 5 minutes. Creed collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. He checked the recording. Still safe. That reaver was proof. The Syndicate knew what he was after, which meant others were coming. Above ground, the night sky had turned pitch black. No stars, just clouds thick with ash and fuel exhaust. His HUD showed 3 signals in low orbit. 2 frigates. 1 drop cruiser. They're not just containing me, Creed muttered. They're erasing this whole site. The Syndicate's tactic was simple. Deny the legend. Deny the myth. Deny humanity's edge. Because once mercenaries remembered what it really meant to face Terran special forces, the war economy would crack. Contracts would dry up. Soldiers would refuse. And the empires who used aliens as cannon fodder would find themselves fighting alone. But that meant Creed had to survive. He tapped a secure frequency. One reserved for Black Ops ghosts. This is Ghost 7. Package secured. Extraction protocol Black Ember. Repeat, Black Ember. A pause. Then a voice, low and familiar, broke through the static. Copy Ghost 7. Ember en route. ETA 16 minutes. Prepare for heavy resistance. Creed nodded to himself. 16 minutes. That was all he had to survive. Just 16 minutes against an army designed to kill him. But he'd fought longer against worse. He drew a second weapon, double-checked the recording device, and faded into the shadows of the upper canyons. Somewhere above, the Syndicate's frigates deployed their shock troops. Alien mercs of every shape and size. 8-limbed flesh tanks, snipers with eyes that saw heat trails from orbit, assassins who could glide like smoke, descended toward the planet like vultures. And every one of them had the same intel packet in their system. Target, human operator Ghost. Threat level, moderate. Priority, terminate and retrieve data. What they didn't know, what none of their briefings ever explained, was that Creed wasn't just a man. He was the message, and they were about to read it the hard way. The wind howled through the upper canyons, scouring the cliffs with razor-sharp dust. Creed crouched behind a natural ridge of obsidian rock, rifle braced, breath slow and steady. Through his scope, he watched the mercenary drop cruiser exhale death onto the surface. Pods slammed into the ground like meteors, bursting open in synchronized hisses. Out poured mercs in gleaming composite armor, some riding sleek crawlers, others lumbering on mechanized legs. Species from across 3 sectors. Paid killers. Professionals. They fanned out fast, efficient, their formation eerily precise. They were here to kill a ghost. Creed whispered into his mic. Any sign of Ember? The voice on the other end crackled. We're still 11 minutes out. Syndicate's jamming long-range sensors. We'll punch through, but you'll have to light a beacon manually. Creed stared at the horizon, jaw set. Copy. I'll bring the party. He rose, switched his rifle to plasma bursts, and launched 2 signal flares into the sky. Bright red arcs that carved trails against the dark. The mercenaries saw it instantly, and like insects drawn to heat, they moved. Creed ran, fast and low, baiting them through the narrow, winding crevices he'd memorized hours ago. Explosives he'd rigged earlier detonated one by one, delaying, dividing, confusing. But they were adapting fast. A 6-legged Farnax hunter thing vaulted over a ridge and landed feet away, its mandibles snapping. Creed fired 2 rounds point blank, took its knee joint, then vaulted up a rock face and vanished again. They weren't trying to capture him now. They wanted to bury him beneath the stone. Suddenly, a different voice pinged his comms. Female. Calm. Too calm. Mr. Creed, she said, you are surprisingly agile for a Terran with a death warrant. Creed froze mid-sprint. I don't know you. I know you. Your story they tell in Syndicate war briefings. The human who escaped Karo's Prime. The man who walked through a Hellion raid without firing a shot and lived. Do you know what they call you? He ducked into a collapsed mining tunnel, set a trip mine at the entrance. Let me guess, he said. Target practice. They call you the Reminder. Because your existence reminds us of what humans are like when they stop playing nice. Creed's eyes narrowed. I'm flattered. Really. But if you're looking to talk, pick another channel. Oh, this isn't a negotiation, she said sweetly. I'm just here to deliver the twist. Creed blinked. The what? A sudden beep pulsed from a recorder in his chest pocket. The data drive, the one with the footage, was live streaming. Broadcast link. Open. Upload in progress. What the hell? Creed yanked it out, checked his suit's network. No uplink protocols were enabled. You've been transmitting that file since you touched the cradle, the voice cooed. Even now, it's bouncing across black market relays, data mirrors, unsecured pirate buoys. We don't need to retrieve it, Mr. Creed. We just need to make sure you die before it spreads too far. Creed swore. The damn cradle was rigged. That file goes public, and no one's going to take a syndicate contract again, he growled. Exactly. That's why you die here. Your footage gets dismissed as a fake, your body disappears in a crater, and the myth stays buried. Creed stared at the recorder. The signal was already climbing. At this rate, within 10 minutes, every Merc Blacknet forum in the outer sectors would have it. And that's when it hit him. She wasn't lying. This wasn't about stopping the leak. This was about suppressing the symbol. Him. His existence, not just the video, was the threat. Because he wasn't just showing footage of human tactics. He was proving that even when cornered, outnumbered, betrayed, hunted, humans kept fighting. All right, he said softly into his mic, twist received. He yanked the secondary beacon from his pack and triggered it manually, the plasma igniting into a blue-white inferno. The Syndicate would know what it meant. So would Ember. I'm not running anymore. Suit yourself, the woman said. All units converge. From the hills, from the clouds, from beneath the ground, they came. Dozens of mercs. Too many to count. High-end firepower. Armor heavier than tanks. A few of them didn't even bother with rifles. They came with blades and mauls, built for intimidation as much as killing. Creed stood on a ridge, framed by firelight, rifle held low. A heartbeat passed. Then, from the shadows behind him, came the low thrum of a ship's engine. Ember. A sleek, black ops dropship shimmered into view above the canyon, wings folding out, weapon ports glowing like angry stars. Her voice returned in his earpiece. Ghost 7. Rides here. Creed didn't look back. Instead, he stepped forward toward the mercenaries. One raised a pulse rifle. Creed fired first. The bolt hit the alien's weapon, detonating it in a burst of plasma. Another Merc closed in. Creed kicked off the ridge, landed hard, slid, fired again. Ember opened up from above, raining precision lasers and EMP bursts, carving through the mercenary ranks like a surgeon's blade. Creed moved in tandem with the blasts, clearing out the stragglers, using their own panic against them. But the Reaver was back, this time with a different look. Armor cracked, chest glowing. It moved faster than before. Smarter. Adaptive AI, learning from failure. It leapt down, smashing a crater into the rock, and hurled a shard of steel like a spear. Creed dodged barely. "You are resilient," the Reaver said, stepping over its fallen comrades. "But you are still just a man." Creed raised his weapon. "And you're still just a mistake." They charged. The impact shook the canyon. The Reaver's fists were seismic. Creed moved with purpose, slamming grenades into its joints, blasting it back, diving through its blind spots. But it was closing in, adapting with every second. Suddenly, an idea. He switched frequencies to Ember's targeting system. "Mark location Delta 3, he gasped. "Ready a spike strike." "Ghost, you're still in the radius." "Do it." The Reaver lunged. Creed rolled, back against the wall, as the sky split. A lance of plasma thundered down from Ember's forward cannon, punching a kilometer-deep scar into the canyon floor. The shockwave launched Creed back, pain splintering through his ribs. The Reaver, caught in the epicenter, disintegrated, armor first, then frame, then fire. Silence fell. Ash drifted. Ember hovered closer, ramp dropping. A figure stepped out, tall, armored, and unmistakably human. "Commander Nyla Voss." "Get in," she said. Creed staggered to his feet, still gripping the data core. "Did it upload?" "All of it," she nodded. "Every blacknet in 3 sectors has it." The myth's alive again. Creed let out a slow breath and climbed aboard. But as Ember lifted off, as the battlefield receded, he glanced at the horizon. He knew what came next. That footage would ripple across galaxies. Mercenary units would begin questioning contracts. Some would walk away. Others would panic. But not all. Some would believe. Some would remember what the old stories said about humans in war. They don't stop. They don't break. They remind the universe why the stars feared them once. Let me know when you're ready for Section 4, the climax. This is where everything explodes, emotionally and literally. The Ember-class dropship screamed through the upper atmosphere, burning a sonic trail as it banked hard toward the black side of the planet. In the belly of the ship, Creed sat strapped in, his cracked helmet on the floor beside him, face bloodied but calm. Across from him sat Commander Nyla Voss, rigid, statuesque, armored in the obsidian gray of Special Forces High Command. Her gloved hand tapped the side of a hollow projector, with a decrypted footage from a Syndicate cradle flickered frame by frame. Mercenary atrocities, civilian extermination, Syndicate officers laughing over mass graves. It was the kind of truth the galaxy refused to admit, but couldn't ignore once seen. And the footage was now viral. 30 million views in the first 10 minutes, Voss muttered, almost in disbelief. Half the mercenary guilds are already retracting contracts. Some are even defecting. "Good," Creed said, his voice low. "It's not enough." Voss looked at him. "No," she agreed, "it's not. That's why we're hitting their heart." A new image bloomed on the holo display. Echelon Prime, the orbital citadel where Syndicate High Command oversaw contract enforcement across half the Outer Rim. An impossible tower of glass and alloy, guarded by AI, fleets, and mercenary garrisons, suspended in geostationary orbit like a crown of war. "We're going to crash the truth right into their command throne," she said. Creed arched an eyebrow. "You got a war plan?" "We've got you." A beat passed. Then the ship's hull jolted as they breached the last atmosphere layer. Turrets along the outer edge of Echelon Prime rotated toward them, already locking targets. "Ember, status." Voss barked. "Hostile fleet detecting us. 10 seconds to missile lock. Shields at 72%. We'll make it, if we fly like humans." Creed grinned. "I hate flying like humans." The sky filled with light. Flak tore around them. Plasma bolts lit up the cockpit like a rave. Ember Dove, twisted, rolled between defense grids. Creed felt gravity shift, stomach twist. They weren't flying, they were threading chaos. Alarms howled. Then came the slam of metal on metal. Impact. The dropship didn't land on the station. It embedded itself in the top hangar, scattering syndicate guards like dice. The ramp slammed open before the fire even settled, and Creed ran straight into the inferno, Nyla at his side. Inside Echelon Prime, everything was panic. Sirens blared. Auto turrets unfolded from the walls. Holograms of Creed's face blinked onto every surface. Terminate on sight. Human Special Forces operative. Level 0 clearance. He sprinted through corridors, double-tapped the guards that flanked them. His rifle sang. Nyla tore through their flanks, her blade flashing blue, burning through armor like paper. They were heading toward the throne deck, the command node from where syndicate warlords orchestrated mercenary strikes across entire solar systems. Why aren't they locking this place down harder? Creed muttered as he reloaded. Because they don't believe we'll make it. 3 more minutes, 10 more floors. On deck 37, the Reaver returned. Or what was left of it. A new version. Sleeker. Fused with fresh tech. Its molten eyes locked on a Creed. And this time, it said nothing. It simply charged. Creed met it mid-run. They clashed like gods. Metal met bone. Sparks flew. Creed's rifle snapped in two from the impact. He dodged, feinted, pulled a knife from his boot, and drove it up under the Reaver's ribs. It twisted, countered, punched. Creed was flung back, ribs screaming. The Reaver advanced, faster now. Nyla flanked it, stabbed low, sliced high. It grabbed her wrist mid-strike and hurled her across the room. You're learning, Creed gasped, rolling to his knees. But not fast enough. He reached into his belt and yanked out a micro-core, unstable, glowing. A syndicate warhead the size of a grapefruit. The Reaver paused. Suicidal, it hissed. No, Creed said. Tactical. He activated the core and threw it. The Reaver instinctively caught it. Right before it detonated in a pulse of plasma and EMP, ripping its systems apart. The blast shorted everything on the deck. Lights blew. Walls fractured. Creed stumbled through smoke, dragging himself forward. Nyla was back on her feet, barely. They reached the final door, the throne room. Locked. Sealed with Syndicate Prime code. Creed slammed his hand against the panel. Nothing. Nyla pointed to a glowing pillar embedded beside the door. Hard link. They have to scan a mercenary to access it. Creed grinned. Good thing we brought one. He reached into his pack, pulled out a severed arm, still armored in Syndicate red. You're insane, Nyla muttered. He jammed it into the scanner. Access granted. The doors slid open, revealing the inner sanctum of the galaxy's deadliest corporate empire. Inside, glass walls, black marble floors, and 7 Syndicate High Lords staring in stunned silence. One of them, a gray-skinned Altheri, hissed, "How did he get here?" Creed raised his sidearm. I walked. He shot the first 2 before they could draw. Nyla took the rest. When the chamber was silent, Creed pulled the final data core from his armor, slotted it into the central command terminal, and uploaded the footage again. This time into every mercenary guild archive directly. Not just the video, but logs, names, proof, and a message. His voice. To every merc out there, look at who's paying you. Look at what they made you cover up. You were soldiers once. You were warriors. You were killers for hire, but not for monsters. The Syndicate tried to erase this story. Tried to erase me. Now, it's burned into the galaxy forever. You can keep fighting for them, or you can stand with us. Choose. The message spread in real time, burning through every system the Syndicate controlled. Their command throne went dark. Their servers went dead. Echelon Prime began to shake. Time to go, Nyla said. They ran, barely making it to a secondary evac pod before the whole tower erupted behind them. Plumes of fire shooting into the stratosphere as the Syndicate's lies collapsed under their own weight. As the pod arced away, Creed looked down at the ruins of Echelon Prime, watching it shrink beneath the stars. He didn't smile. Not yet. But but his eyes burned like truth. The stars looked different. Creed sat in the medical bay of the Valkyrie's Fist, a special forces flagship hovering just outside the shattered orbit of what used to be Echelon Prime. His ribs were bandaged, his face bruised, but his posture, straight, controlled, refused to betray any weakness. Nyla Voss stood at the window nearby, arms crossed, watching mercenary fleets shift like nervous vultures in the distance. "They're not attacking," she murmured. "No," Creed replied. "They're watching." And they were. Across every mercenary channel in known space, Creed's message replayed on loop. Syndicate contracts were burning, literally in some cases. Dozens of mercenary ships lit bonfires in their holds, burning physical contracts, insignias, even whole databanks. Some guilds had already vanished from the galactic map, taking their fortunes and fleeing into deep space. Others had sent emissaries, not to the Syndicate, but to the Terran Coalition, requesting talks, truces, even alliances. "I can't believe it," Nyla whispered. "It actually worked. You made them see." Creed shook his head slowly. "I didn't make them see. I reminded them." He stood, pain flaring in his side, and limped to the window. His reflection stared back at him, scarred, tired, but alive. "A mercenary will follow money," he said, "but a warrior follows something else. Honor, legacy, rage. I gave them a reason to remember what they used to be." "And the Syndicate?" Nyla asked, fragmenting. "Their leadership's either dead or on the run. Their shadow accounts are frozen. And those that haven't fled," he turned, "they're next." Galactic broadcast, 1 week later. Asterisk. This is Equal Thurn with Outer Rim Alliance news. In a shocking turn of events, over 30 independent mercenary guilds have revoked syndicate contracts and declared neutrality in ongoing border conflicts. Some are even providing intel to Terran forces. This seismic shift has left the galactic balance of power shaken, and many are asking the same question. Who is the human known only as Creed, and what will he do next? Asterisk. Planet. Yosari Prime, mercenary stronghold. Gilded statues of syndicate warlords had once towered here. Now they were rubble. A new banner flew over the compound. Not human, not alien, but a gray sigil shaped like a broken chain. A neutral guild symbol, one that meant freedom from syndicate control. Creed walked through the base, flanked by former mercenaries, Scarians, Vortha, even a few L-Theory. They didn't salute. They didn't kneel. But they watched him with silent respect. He had become a symbol, not a commander, not a conqueror, a reminder. He stopped in front of the largest hall. Inside were leaders of 20 mercenary guilds, seated like kings without thrones. One of them, a horned Droshik, stood. "We're not soldiers," he growled. "Not saints. We kill. We will keep killing. So why should we follow your path, human?" Creed didn't flinch. "I don't want you to follow me," he said. "I want you to choose." He pointed at the screen behind them, where syndicate footage still played. Factories full of orphans, cities reduced to ash, civilians enslaved under invisible contracts. You were told these were lies. They weren't. You were told you'd be hunted if you broke rank. You won't be. Not by us. But the syndicate? They'll come for you. Silence. Then Creed dropped a data spike onto the table. "This is a list of every syndicate bounty broker, vault, and off-record hideout across the known galaxy." One of the mercenaries leaned forward. "You're giving us their intel?" "I'm giving you a choice," Creed said. "Burn it. Sell it. Use it. I don't care. But you do have to decide who you are when the credits run dry. Merc or monster?" 3 weeks later, on board the Human Coalition cruiser Resolute Wrath, Nyla found Creed alone in the lower decks, sitting beside the auxiliary launch bay, watching hangar doors open to reveal a cradle of stars. She sat beside him. "Some of those mercenaries have started calling themselves the Gray Hand," she said softly. "Others are using a name. Creed Protocol. Creed Doctrine. You know what that means, right?" He nodded. "A myth is forming. Do you like it?" "No, but it's useful." She smiled faintly. "They're afraid of us now." "Good. Is that enough?" Creed turned to her, expression unreadable. "No." Message broadcast, untraceable frequency. Creed's voice again. Calm. Direct. This isn't over. The Syndicate fell, but they weren't the first, and they won't be the last. There are always empires that rise by bleeding the forgotten dry. So, to anyone out there thinking they can use fear, lies, or wealth to bend free souls, remember this. There are humans out here now, and we don't forget. We remind. Aboard an unknown ship, location, classified. Creed stood alone in front of a reinforced door with no name. A single word etched into the metal, black box. He typed in a code known only to special forces, then hesitated. Behind this door were secrets not even Syndicate lords dared access. Coordinates, origins, warnings. He could walk away. He didn't. The door opened. Inside, darkness, but also new intel. Something ancient, something bigger than the Syndicate. He took a breath and stepped in. The story should have ended with the Syndicate's fall, but it didn't. Instead, it rippled through star maps and bloodlines, through cultures and legends. Empires that had ruled for millennia suddenly staggered under the weight of a single, terrifying realization. Humans do not stop, not when threatened, not when outnumbered, not when bought, not even when broken. The creed, his creed, echoed far beyond mercenary guilds. In corners of the galaxy where subjugated races had knelt for generations, rebellions ignited. Children once born into slavery now whispered his name, not as a man, but a threshold. The point where fear ended and resistance began. 3 years later, Monument of Gray Ashes, Outer Rim Sector Zeta 9. The monument stood tall above a barren moon, sculpted from Syndicate wreckage. It bore no name, no species, no flag. Just a phrase, etched in every language known across the stars. They offer death. We offer defiance. We remain. Around the base, candles flickered. Real ones, wax imported from Terra itself. Thousands visited each cycle. Ex-mercs, runaways, former slaves, even Syndicate defectors. Some came to mourn. Most came to remember. And a few came to train. Because under the monument's foundation, hidden in tunnels carved from ancient vaults, something new had formed. Not a military, not a mercenary guild, a doctrine. Greyhand operative training logs, entry 112. They say humanity has no homeworld anymore. Not really, not with how far they've spread. But they brought their ghosts with them, everywhere. Some of us train not because we want to fight, but because we're afraid not to. Because we've seen what happens when monsters rise and no one answers. Creed didn't just beat the Syndicate. He showed us we could too. Council of the 12 Stars, emergency session. Alien leaders argued, postured, and threatened across a shimmering ring-shaped chamber above Oshani's prime. The destruction of Syndicate capital fleets had left a power vacuum, and the factions jostled like carrion birds over a corpse. Until the human ambassador arrived. She didn't shout. She didn't even sit. She placed a single hologram in the air. It was a video. Short. Blurry. It showed Creed inside the black box. His voice echoed. They're coming. Not Syndicate. Not mercenaries. Not pirates. Something older. Something buried. And we're the only ones who've seen this pattern before. The chamber fell silent. The humans didn't want control. They wanted preparation. Far edge of the Orion Veil. Research Base K1X. They called it Project Longfall. A massive dig site on a dead world where no stars shone nearby. Black stone, impossible alloys, and buried architecture predated known species by tens of millions of years. What the humans found there changed everything. A weapon, a gate, a signal. The details were redacted. But one phrase kept repeating in their logs. We thought we were the peak. We were the warning. 10 years later, Galactic Archives, Neutral Core, Archive Hub. An alien child, eyes wide with curiosity, asked their teacher a simple question. Why do we never take contracts against humans? The teacher, an aged Vortha, sat in silence for a long moment before replying. You ever see a dying star? Yes. You know how it looks quiet, from a distance? The child nodded. The teacher leaned closer. That's what a human is. You think they're done, burned out, quiet. but you get too close. He touched the child's chest, and it changes you forever. Creed's last known message, location, unknown. He was older now, grayer, the light in his eyes colder, but not dimmer. Behind him, the galaxy looked different, more united, more wary, more prepared. We didn't set out to be heroes. We weren't bred for peace. But when the line came, when they told us to kneel, to obey, to forget who we were, we answered the only way humans know how. We reminded them of rage, of memory, of defiance. And we're not done yet. Final entry, centuries later. Alien historians scoured ruins of the Syndicate. Every file, every encrypted data point, every forgotten whisper pointed back to one species. One legend, one name, but they could never confirm his birthplace, could never trace his gene print, could never pin down if he was soldier, ghost, or myth. All that remained were scattered words, etched on shattered blades, spoken in prayer before battle, scrawled across the hulls of warships turned into temples. And those words echoed still. Human, don't stop.